Here's a twist on the classic Fibonacci dozen system that was also rated a grapefruit by the CEG dealer school. Let's check out Follow That MF Dozen together today on JackAce. What up, donkeys? JackAce here with JackAce.com, and today I have another roulette system for you. This system is called Follow That MF Dozen and was rated a grapefruit by CEG, and it's based on golden entry, aka Fibonacci dozens, which was also rated a double grapefruit. This system has a suggested buy-in of $2,100, but we're going to be buying for $2,000. If you want, you can extend your buy-in to $3,300. That gives you an extra chance to stay alive. This system is based on the Fibonacci sequence, which is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, etc. The Fibonacci sequence starts with 1, 1, and then you just add the last two numbers to get the next number. So once again, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. We're going to be playing with $100 units, so that's going to be 100, 100, 200, 300, 500, 800, 1300. This system is just like golden entry. This system is just like Fibonacci dozens, except to determine which dozen you bet on, you follow the last number that hit. That means for our first spin, we're going to start off with a blank spin. We're not going to bet any money, and whatever dozen it lands on, that's what we're going to bet on. So our first spin is going to be a blank spin. We're betting $0. We're just trying to determine which dozen to bet on. So 30 is the dozen. We're going to bet on the third dozen. We're going to start off with a $100 bet. We're going to be starting with a $7.7 million balance, but we're going to be pretending that we're only playing with a $2,000 bankroll. So 13 is in the second dozen. That's a miss. We're going to move our bet to the second dozen. The second number in the Fibonacci sequence is 1, so we're going to still bet $100. So 5, that's the first dozen. We're going to move our bet to the first dozen. That's another whack. And we're going to bet $200 on the first dozen. So this system was highly rated by CEG. They rated it a grapefruit. That is their highest rating. And the system that it's based on is called golden entry or Fibonacci dozens. That was also rated a double grapefruit. So 1, that's a hit on the first dozen. We win $400. We are currently up $200. And we drop back down to the $100 bet. We're going to put it on that same dozen, the first dozen. So 20 is in the second dozen. We're going to move that $100 bet to the second dozen. If you start with a balance of 2,000, that means you can withstand 6 losses. If you start with a starting balance of 3,300, you can withstand 7 losses. 12 is in the first dozen, so that's another whack. Now we're betting $200 and moving it to the first dozen.
No more bets.
7, that's a winner. We win $400 again. We are currently up $400. We drop down to a $100 bet, and we bet on that same dozen, the first dozen. 22, that's the second dozen. That's a whack, and we're going to move our bet to the second dozen, $100 there. The expected loss per spin for that first tier is $2.70 on the single zero wheel, $5.26 on a double zero wheel. And whatever tier you're working on, you would just multiply the Fibonacci number times that number to see what your expected loss is for that round. So if you're betting $800, your expected loss is 8 times 5.26. 13, that's a hit. We win $200 and move to tier 1. Keep our bet on that second dozen. 10 is a whack. And we move our bet to the first dozen. When do you walk? We're gonna just walk when we're up $1,000 or more. That's half of our buy-in. If we buy in for 3,300, that's a little bit under a third. 12, that's a hit. We win 200. We are currently up 600. We're gonna stay on the first dozen bet.
No more bets.
33, that's a whack. Lose 100. Move to step 2 and move to the third dozen. If you enjoy discussing gambling systems, you can join my Discord. We have a pretty good community of over 700 DGens like you, so please join when you have a chance. 1, another whack. We move to tier 3, that's the $200 bet, and we move to the first dozen. This system is a negative progression system, so that means we don't measure our buy-in in bullets. That's what we do with positive progression systems. With a negative progression system, we measure how many losses in a row we can survive. $2,000 gives us 6 losses, 3,300 gives us 7. 29, that's another whack, minus 200. So on CEG, this system was called Follow That MF Dozen, but I'm gonna call it Fibonacci Follow, or we can just call it Follownacci. I kind of like Follownacci. So that's a hit. We win 600. We are currently up $800. Pretty close to our target of being up 1,000.
No more
And we're
bet.
going to stay on the third dozen. Later on, I have a new radar map that I'm going to show you for the numbers that hit. And I'm also going to show you hot and cold bets that would have done well or poorly for this simulation. 22,
No
that's the
more
second dozen. So we're going to move our bet to the second dozen. And we're going to bet 100. 16, that's a $200 win. We are currently up 900. And let's stay on
No
this
more bet.
second dozen. So 21, that's a hit. We win 200 and we're up $1,100. We've hit our goal. That friend was successful. Let's try again with friend number 2. We're gonna start off with a blank spin. We could have just continued betting on
No
the
more
second
bet.
dozen, but we're gonna start fresh, blank spin, 0 bet, see which dozen we're gonna bet on for this new friend. 8, that's the first dozen, so we're gonna bet $100 on the first dozen. If you wanna submit your own roulette system for me to review, fill out my Google form. And if you want me to fast track the review of your system, join my Patreon. Along with this benefit, Patreon members will get
No more
access to
bet.
live streams I'm gonna be doing for real money. They get discounts in my merch store, and it also just helps support the channel. 17, that's a miss, so lose 100, and continue with tier 2, another $100 bet,
No
but
more
this time
bet.
on the second dozen. 34, another miss, so we bet on the third dozen now. This system is super easy to scale up or down. There's not a lot of room to scale up. If you want to scale this down to $1 units, you can do that on an ETG, an electronic table game. You can also bet 5 or 10 or $25 units if you want. 27, that's a hit, so we win 400. This player is also up 200. We're starting off just like we did in the last
No more
frame.
bet.
We're gonna bet 100 on the third dozen. 31, that's a hit. Continue betting on this third dozen.
No more bets.
20, that's a miss. And we move the bet to the second dozen.
No more bets.
4, another whack. That's 2 in a row, so we move to the third tier, $200. We're gonna bet on the first dozen. As far as alternate betting patterns go, you're just betting on a dozen. You can't really consolidate that any further. But in terms of do you follow the last number, that part is really optional. And some people might really argue that that's not the case, that you will mix things up by following the last number. But later on, I'm gonna show you with my simulator that that does not matter. It's irrelevant. The only thing that it forces you to do is memorize what the last number was and also sit out a spin when zeros hit. 12, that's a hit. We win 400. Reset to step 1.
No more bets.
31, that's a whack. Continue with step 2, another $100, but this time on the third dozen.
No more bets.
13, another whack. We're still up. We're only at plus 400 right now, but we're gonna bet $200 on the second dozen. If you want to see other roulette systems, check out my site, JackAce.com. There I have a catalog of over 550 roulette systems. You can sort them by buying them out, by bet size, by my rating of the system. And if you drill down to each one, you can see spin by spin results. I also have a tool called the Roulette Bet Analyzer. There you can enter your roulette bets. It'll show you how much you're gonna win for every result,
No more bets.
what your expected loss per spin is, what your expected comp value per spin is, and how much coverage of the wheel you have. 18, that's a hit. We win 400. We are currently up 800 for this friend. And continue betting
No more
on
bet.
the second dozen. 19, that's a hit. We win 200 and we are up 1,000. We've hit our goal. So friend 2 is successful. Now we're 2 for 2. And we're gonna try maybe one more friend.
No more
Let's
bet.
do friend number 3. We're gonna start off again with a blank spin. We're not gonna make a bet. This is gonna determine which dozen we bet on. 23, so that's the second dozen. We're gonna put 100 on the second dozen.
No more bets.
8, that's a whack. We're gonna move our $100 bet to the first dozen. What are the pros for this system? It's an extremely simple system. The only complication is the betting sequence if you're not familiar with Fibonacci
Okay.
already. Also, there's a slower ramp up than in Martingale. With Martingale, things get really bad really fast. 1, that's a hit. We win 200. This friend is currently up 100, and we're gonna reset with
No more
step 1. $100 on the first dozen. 19, that's a whack. Continue to tier 2, which is still $100, but we're going to move it to the second dozen.
No more bets.
28, another whack, but we're going to move to the third dozen, this time betting 200. What are the cons for this system? This can also spiral out of control. Perhaps not as fast as Martingale, but it's still pretty fast. Another con is that there's a smaller target than with Martingale. With Martingale, you're betting on 18 numbers usually.
No more bets.
Here, we're only betting on 12. So when you start to get stuck, it can be hard to get out because you're hitting a smaller target. 34, that's a hit. We win $400, and we are currently up $300.
No more bets.
5, that's a whack. We're going to put $100 on the first dozen.
No more bets.
8, that's a hit. Win 200. We're currently up 400.
No more bets.
17, that's a miss. We're going to move our $100 bet to the second dozen. So does it help if you follow the last number, or if you bet the opposite, or if you just stay on the same dozen or column the entire time? We'll see how it does when we look at the JackAce simulator later on. 21, we recover. We're currently up 500 and reset to step 1.
No more bets.
24, another hit. We win 200. We are currently up 700.
No more bets.
31, a whack. Currently up 600. We're going to move this bet to the third dozen.
No more bets.
25, that's a hit. We win 200 and up 800. And don't forget to visit my JackAce merch store, shop.jackace.com. There I have a bunch of JackAce branded merch, roulette and craps merch, blackjack, basic strategy cards, video game and crypto merch. Check it out, it's perfect for all degens. 11, that's a whack. Bet 100 on the first dozen.
No more bets.
1, win 200. We are currently up 900.
No more bets.
15, that's a whack. Lose 100. We're going to move that $100 bet to the second dozen.
No more bets.
16, we win 200. We are currently up 1,000. We have hit our goal. So we are 3 for 3 with our friends. All 3 players hit their goal of being up 1,000. We are currently up 3,100. That's a very good result. We didn't have to bet more than 300, so we got very, very lucky. In fact, this entire time we only bet $300 once. So yeah, great result, 3 for 3. But let's check out the system in the JackAce simulator. What up, donkeys? JackAce here, and we are simulating another roulette system. This one is called Follownacci, or Follow That MF Dozen. We're going to be trying to increase our bankroll from 3,300 to 4,300, 2,000 to 3,000, and 1,200 to 2,200. In each case, that's an increase of $1,000, 10 units. For trying to increase our bankroll from 3,300 to 4,300, we are successful 71.6% of the time on single zero, 69.2% of the time on double zero, and 66.7% of the time on triple zero. So there's a fair amount of drop off there, about 5%. And then when we try to increase our bankroll from 2,000 to 3,000, that's 50%. We are successful 57.3% of the time on single zero, 56.1% of the time on double zero, and 53.7% of the time on triple zero. And finally, trying to increase our bankroll from 1,200 to 2,200, that's 83%. We are successful 43.8% of the time on single zero, 42.4% of the time on double zero, and 40.1% of the time on triple zero. Now, I also ran this simulation against golden entry, which for that system, you're not following the dozen, you're just betting on the same dozen over and over. And here are those results. You can see that nearly every trial is identical or within, 1% of Follownacci. So everything's within the margin of error. You know, when you run simulations, you're going to have some variance in your results. It's only when you run millions and millions of trials when you start to see convergence towards the actual percentage. So there's naturally a bit of variance. I'm only running 10,000 trials at a time. But if I were to run millions and millions of trials, you'd see these numbers converge and you would see that they would be identical. Now, the only difference between these two systems you're going to see is the spins per trial. Obviously, with Follownacci, you have more spins per trial because you start with a blank spin. And also, you have to have another blank spin whenever you spin a 0 or double 0 or triple 0. So you'll see that Follownacci has more spins per trial. So basically, what I have been suggesting would happen is the success failure percentages are identical or nearly identical. You're just sitting out more spins because you have to reset every time a 0 comes out, a green comes out. Another thing I'm going to start doing in my reviews is showing you a roulette wheel heat map, basically showing you what numbers came up and with what frequency, and here's that heat map here. You can see we had one big outlier, the number 1, which hit 4 times. 4 numbers hit 3 times. Most of the numbers that hit between 1 and 2 times. And there's quite a few numbers that we didn't hit at all, including both zeros. We got really lucky with our results. We only had to bet 300 one time and we hit it on that one. We never had to bet 500 or more. That's quite unusual for almost 50 spins and 3 friends, 3 trials. So we were very fortunate on the plus side. So keep that in mind if you choose to try this system out in real life. Another thing I'm going to be showing you in my reviews is this number map. This spreadsheet is going to show you the individual numbers that performed well and were cold. It's also going to show you the outside bets that performed well or performed poorly. Along the left-hand side, you can see each individual number. The cold numbers are blue. The hot numbers are red. So you can see 1 was red hot, 12, 13 were hot, 8 was hot. And then along the bottom, everything was kind of lukewarm with the even money bets. You can see the first column was red hot, and the coldest bet was the third dozen, which only hit 11 times. That's half of the number of hits of the first column. So yeah, there was definitely some bunching. We hit quite a bit on the second dozen as well. We hit it 28%. Normally you would expect 14 or 15 hits. We got 19. So I think definitely that second dozen hitting that much was a help to us. So that is how Follownacci did in the JackAce simulator. What do you think of it so far? What do you think about following the bets? Do you think it helps improve your chances? Do you think it doesn't matter? Let me know in the comments below. For my review of this system, for the betting simplicity, I give it 5 out of 5 stars. It really doesn't get any simpler than just betting on 1 dozen. You're just making one bet. Easy to do. Progression simplicity, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The only complication is that you have to know the Fibonacci sequence. If you have any problems memorizing what it is, you can just write it down or just figure it out with some simple math. For chip uniformity, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. With this current bankroll, you're not going to bet more than 13 chips at a time. Jackpot potential, I give it 4 out of 5 stars, maybe a little bit less. When we talk about wins, it's probably going to be a fraction of your bankroll. I think for $2,000, I think for $3,300, I think $1,000 is a good target. That's 10 units. Scalability, we talked about this before. It's very easy to scale down. If you want to scale up to the thousands, if you're a high roller, that's easy to do too. Comp value, I maybe give a 3.5 or 4 stars out of 5. The only bad thing about it is that I don't think you're going to be playing for very long. I don't think this is a comp-friendly system. This is not a play-all-day system, but the units you are betting are certainly good for comps. So overall, I give this 5 out of 5 stars. I think it's a great system. I think we hit our target very easily with our 3 friends. But like all systems, this is not a long-term system. This is not something you can quit your job and start doing every day. If you have a goal to gamble and you bring $2,000 with you to Vegas, this is a good system to play. We had a very unusual run. We got very lucky. We didn't hit any zeros. So my live trials are kind of an anomaly. They're probably an outlier. Like I said, we didn't bet more than 300 and we only did that once. So we were very, very fortunate to always hit that following dozen. So that's my review of Fibonacci Follow or Follownacci. What do you think of it so far? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of following the last dozen or following the last column? Do you think it's an effective strategy? If you enjoy content such as this, remember to like and subscribe. Always gamble responsibly. Never play 000 roulette. And peace out, donkeys.